Living Local Carolina with Katie Turner. Local trends, shopping, dining, and more. This is Living Local Carolina.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on Living Local Carolina. I'm going to be chatting with the guys from Beach Injury Lawyers, Will and Greg. What are we talking about today?
Well, we were talking about something very easy, but that we want the viewers to, I think easy. We want the viewers to understand the process that they will go through if they choose to retain an attorney in a personal injury case. So I will start with the first part, which is pre-litigation. And later on in the show, a young lady will explain how we resolved her case pre-litigation. So pre-litigation is anything prior to filing a lawsuit.
Gotcha.
Okay. So during this part, the client's job is to go treat and get better. That's all they have to do. We ask them just treat, get better, and tell us where you're treating. And during that time, we are obtaining any evidence that we can that's relevant to the case, such as photographs, videos, Freedom of Information Act requests if necessary, copies of the accident report, copies of their medical records, all the things that are relevant to give a description to the case. Any witness statements. I often have to drive to witnesses to get them. We want to get them notarized. Those are all powerful tools. And once they finish their treatment, which we are at the mercy of them treating. So they could treat for 3 months or they could treat for 1.5 years. And really there's not a whole lot we can do until they've completed treatment. So after that, we obtain their final medical records and we put together a large demand package. That is our demand to the insurance company. If the case is severe enough, we demand all the money they have. And we have a powerful tool right now where we say if you don't have that check to us by a certain date, then we are able to pursue a bad faith claim.
Okay.
An example would be if there's $100,000 in limits and our client has $100,000 in medicals. Clearly they should just tender the money. So that's kind of the pre-litigation portion. That's what I do with the firm. If things get to where a couple of shows ago we talked about some of the offers we've gotten, $100,000 in coverage, we've got $30,000 in meds and they offer $10,000. Well, I'm not going to respond. I'm going to hand it to Greg and say, okay, your turn.
Let's go to court.
Your turn. Yeah.
Take the reins, Greg.
I'm like the old bull in a china closet. So
Yeah.
So when honestly, I have filed. I think I've said on previous shows that I have filed more lawsuits, in the past year than I generally would, and it's because of situations where, there's a $25,000 policy. Your client has $23,000 in meds. That should be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Just for the insurance company to hand over the $25,000, yet they'll offer you $7,000, $8,000, and that's it. So nobody, at least in their right mind, should take an offer like that. So, will pass the case over to me. I file a lawsuit. Lawsuits are, they come in stages. The first stage of a lawsuit is, it's called discovery. Each party gets to send each other a bunch of questions, a bunch of requests for documents, which would mainly be medical records. So once you exchange that information, then you set up depositions where everybody sits in a room with a court reporter, you get sworn in, and then the lawyers go at it asking, the clients 100 questions or more, about the case. So after the deposition phase, then you have to go to mediation. In South Carolina, anytime a lawsuit is filed, the vast majority of cases are subject to mediation, meaning everybody gets together with a third-party neutral, generally a lawyer, and you try to resolve the case. Generally, 90-something% of the cases will settle in mediation, but in that 10% category, then you're going to have to go to the courthouse and you're going to have to try your case in front of a jury.
All right.
And it is not a quick process.
No, it is not.
It is not a quick process, but we do our best to move it along as quickly as we can.
And that's why it's important to get somebody like beach injury lawyers, because you don't want to do all that work on your own, and you
Amen.
can't.
That's true.
All right, well, guys, stick with us because after the break, we're going to be talking about a new topic we actually haven't talked about here on Living Local yet, nursing home safety and situations. Stick with us. Thanks for sticking with us here on Living Local Carolina. I've been talking with the guys from Beach Injury Lawyers. We're talking about nursing home neglect. This is a nightmare situation for a lot of folks watching right now.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, if you have someone that you love, care about in a nursing home, I don't want to scare anyone, but the truth of the matter is studies have shown, recent studies, that 1 out of every 10 folks in a nursing home are suffering from either neglect or abuse. And that's a staggering figure, and they explain that the studies are probably actually showing a lower number than there really is. And the reason is a lot of people fear retaliation. You know, you're old, you're elderly, you're not able really to defend yourself in a situation where, you know, your family comes as much as they can, but you're there with the staff a lot of times by yourself, right? Yeah. So, there's a lot of different ways it can happen. We kind of break it up into two things. One is neglect, which is not necessarily an intentional situation, and then abuse, which is a serious and situation which really police involvement should be brought in. But you want to get some examples of?
Well, I mean, one of the common issues is our bed sores or pressure ulcers, which are 100% preventable. No one should have a bed sore or a pressure ulcer. It simply takes. Someone has to simply take the time to move the person around to ensure that there's no pressure overload. Normally, it's going to come, the low back, the buttocks, those areas which are going to be sitting on a mattress. This is generally for people who can't move or they can't move well. But again, those are 100% preventable. But you will, we've seen cases where that people die of the bed sores.
Yeah.
It is horrific. Some of the photographs that we've seen of clients that, their loved ones who eventually passed away from, the infection. And now, but that's abuse. That's abuse. When it gets to that point, that's truly abuse.
So let me ask you this. If somebody feels like their loved one or somebody they know is being neglected in a nursing home, what's the best thing for them to do? Should they take pictures? Should they, call you guys immediately? How does that work?
Document is definitely important. The police are definitely an option. They're going to investigate. So that's one thing that, it will be hard for someone that doesn't have such authority to do that, to investigate. Adult Protective Services, and if possible, get them out of there.
Yeah.
If it reaches a level where you're fearing for their safety. Because one of the things that we see is, it's kind of like in any profession, you don't want to tell on your coworker. So it becomes a big cover-up thing, and nobody really knows what happened. And we see that a lot, and I've had cases of sexual abuse, and like one gentleman who had gone room to room and over-medicated patients and then proceeded to rape them. So again, not to scare anybody, but things to look out for. General cleanliness of the person. If their hygiene seems to be lacking, if the bedding seems to be dirty, if you start anything that doesn't seem typical, and you're there for an extended period of time, and you're not seeing them get their medication, or if you notice that they have medication that's missing, or
I hadn't even thought about that.
Well, or you're seeing bruises on your loved one, where typically they're not going to have bruises if they have a bruising on their head or their shoulders or back. Something's going on.
Because fall risks are a big thing. If someone's labeled a fall risk, there are protocols that need to be put into place. And if they're not and they fall, that's the liability is clearly on the shoulders of the facility.
All right. Well, this is all good stuff to know. Thank you guys for sharing. And everyone watching, please stick with us because we have a special guest that's one of the beach injury lawyer's actual clients. So we're going to want to hear from her really soon. Stick with us.
We'll be back right after this break with more Living Local Carolina.
Thanks for sticking with us here on Living Local Carolina. I'm with the guys from Beach Injury Lawyers, and now we are joined by one of their actual clients, Macy. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
You are part of the Beach Injury Lawyers family. You guys have gotten to know each other, obviously, from a really bad situation, but now I'm really glad you're here to tell your story and what you want us to know about these guys.
Absolutely. For me, a big thing with my accident was communication. You see a lot of, I know you guys talked about ads for lawyers. You see a lot of billboards, you see a lot of radio ads, a lot of TV ads. And I was afraid I was gonna get mixed up in that. If you have a lot of lawyers, if you have a lot of clients, you don't have as much communication. I could text them any time of day or night and they would reply to me. They made sure I was heard, they made sure I felt validated, and they made sure that they got back to me in a timely manner, which was huge when I was dealing with the injuries I was dealing with, so.
You know, Macy was involved in a very serious motor vehicle collision. She was hit by someone who did not possess a valid driver's license, and you know, surprisingly, the same person that hit Macy was involved in an accident 2 weeks later, and again with no valid driver's license. So Macy had some pretty significant injuries, primarily with her leg. You know, she still hurts every day. You know, it's a permanent injury that she suffered. But, you know, one of the things that we wanted to make sure to do in terms of taking care of Macy was to ensure that, you know, one, we covered all the bases with her, whether it be her past medical expenses, including her future medical expenses, lost wages, and everything that is associated with a personal injury case. You know, we wanted to make sure that, you know, we covered the bases, which I hope
Definitely
we did.
did. Definitely did.
I hope we did. Macy's case recently resolved. Will had worked really, really hard on getting the case ready, but it did resolve. And from a legal perspective, I think it was a very good resolution. And
It was great for me too, for the record.
Good to know.
We
Good
were
to
able
know.
to get all of the possible money that was possible to get, including punitive, you know, damages. And, you know, Macy saying she was heard, that means a lot to me early on. A lot of times in an accident, you know, you're waiting years to get your settlement while you treat, if you have surgery. And, you know, we were able to obtain the first part of the settlement, and she came to me a couple of times and said, look, you know, I haven't been able to work and I need money. And we were able to partially disperse some of her money to her, that we felt safe, that we would have enough to cover, you know, everything else. And those little things helped, rather than her going to a loan company and, you know, ended up owing them tons of money. We were able to find a way, a unique way to help her, you know, get through those first, you know, 6 months.
You know, one of the things that we made clear with Macy was, if regardless of what if the insurance company makes an offer and you're not happy with it, don't worry. You know, we'll sue them. You know, we will go to court. We will try this case. I love trying cases. So if you can't resolve the case, we will certainly take it to the next level, and we'll go take it before a jury and let a jury decide what the case is worth. Fortunately, she didn't have to go through all that.
So your leg is still bothering you?
So my ankle injury was the biggest injury that I faced. Believe it or not, I don't know which camera to look into. I lead an active lifestyle, okay? So going to the gym, working
Yeah.
my job, swimming, we live by the beach, walking on sand, all of that stuff is still difficult for me. I faced other injuries also, but this one's been long-term. I went through 8 months of physical therapy, was it, before they decided to do surgery? So it was a very long road. I was out of work for a long time, but they took care of me through it all, and definitely resolved it in a way where even if I have to have surgery in the future, I know that I'm able to do that now. And I'm very young, so having that stability for me is a huge relief.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, if somebody is watching this right now and they're thinking, well, that's who I want to call if I'm ever in a situation like Macy, how can they get in contact with you?
Give us a call at 843-357-4111.
Or on the web, www.beachinjurylawyers.com, or on Instagram, IG.
The preceding portion of Living Local Carolina is sponsored by Beach Injury Lawyers.